Hello everyone. This video is part of a series where we are exploring TypeScript's functionalities with the help of a React application. Our main goal here is to learn how to better type our code in order to increase confidence and velocity during development. In the previous video, we have finished or at least covered a good amount of the discussion regarding classes, inheritance, and interfaces. And we saw how the interface pattern is actually more flexible and more reusable than the class inheritance pattern. We also wrote a bit of code in our playground, but now I believe it's time for us to apply what we have learned so far in our actual React application. So just a quick reminder, our application is going to be a very simple e-commerce website where we will have a bunch of products. Every time we click on a product, we are going to open a model with some more detailed description of a product, and we can also add a product to the cart, right? So there is a button here, add to cart, and I can also open the cart by clicking on the show cart. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to start thinking about the different entities that are going to make our application, right? So we will have a bunch of data models. Let's say the product is going to be one data model, the shopping cart is going to be another data model, and we will also have a bunch of components. We need a component to show the summary of the product information. We need a component to show the more detailed information, and we need a component to show the shopping cart. I'm also thinking that in the near future, we may want to work or implement the functionality of resetting the whole application to its initial state, and also the possibility of adding new products to the page here, right? So I believe it would be nice to be able to add new products and maybe to remove products if we want to. But this would be at a later stage. We are using Material UI, so I'll just open it here, Material UI. And here it's directing me to the typography page, but I'll just go up here to the Getting Started page. And if you remember, we already proceeded with installing Material UI in our platform. So let's go back to our code and I will start our React application. So for this video, I think it's quite straightforward that we start with the definition of a product, right? So we have our application here. We know that this is already running. I can open the console. We tried this a couple of videos ago. Maybe here I could define a on-click function. I believe that this should work. And we would say console.log hello world, like so. I save this and I wait until the file compiles. I will go back to the browser and let's see if this is working. Exactly, so it's working. You can see that it's consoling on the right side. So we are able to execute some clicks on my some text button. However, we are not going to do this in this video, right? So this video is focused on defining the product object. So within my source directory, I'll also try to keep things a little bit organized. And here it's very easy to get a disorganized React application. So let's try to keep it organized. I'll create a directory, and this directory is going to be called data models, like so. And in here, I'll create a product.ts. So the product.ts file is going to be the file that will contain the definition of what a product is. And we will use TypeScript for this. If we were using a database engine, let's say MongoDB or SQL or any other for that matter, we would probably also want to create somewhere else, and of course it's not in the React application, but somewhere else we would define a schema, right? The schema says how the data would look like, or how a certain entity of a certain type would look like in that database engine or in that database context. For our purposes here, we will consider TypeScript to be our tool to define the data schema. So we will define the shape of a product object, and for that we will use what we learned about defining the shape of objects with TypeScript. Now remember, This is really a matter of personal preference, and I think I will repeat this every time I say it. I'm sorry if I'm repetitive, but you will see in many places that the normal way to go is to export an interface, like so. But I will not do that. I will export a type because I prefer to use types for objects and interfaces. So types for object properties and interfaces for object or for class methods. Okay, so like interfaces, sticking to the concept that interface declares a method that is visible to the outside world, but it doesn't care how a certain class internally handles the calculation of the result of that method. Okay, so here I'll export the type, and this type is going to be called product. And the product, well, I think the product makes sense that it has an ID, and the ID can be a string. I think we also discussed about having a title, right? The title will be a string, and these two fields are mandatory. Now the product should also have a price, I believe. Price could be a string as well. We can also think about, we would like to have an image, right? But the image can be optional. So I will mark the image as optional, and I will say, okay, if you pass the image, it should be a string, right? So then we can use an image tag in HTML. We can also have a bunch of tags in my product, and these tags are going to be an array of strings. Okay, oops, not here, but at the end of the square brackets. What else does my product need? Well, an ID, a title, a price, an image, and tags, and maybe a description, right? Maybe a description also as a string here. Sorry, small mistake. The price is going to be a number. Quickly messed up this in the implementation here. Okay, so I think that the other ones are all supposed to be strings. You could call the ID a number as well, but for our purposes here, we will just use the UUID library, and we will generate a random string that is going to be long enough to be highly likely unique, right? We will also check for uniqueness here whenever we create a new product in the future, but for the moment, we'll say, okay, I prefer to work with a string, as this ensures, or this gives us more flexibility. And a description. Okay, now what I would like to do is go a little bit further and say that the tags here, well, they are strings, right? They are strings here, but I actually want to create another data model for my tag. So let's create a tag.ts, and here again, I'll export a type of tag, or it could say, let's call it product tag, like so. Or just tag. I think just tag is good enough. So the tag is going to have the following structure. It's going to have a name, and this name is going to be a string, and it's going to have a color, and this color is also going to be a string. So in our application, we may want to store this color as a hexadecimal string so that we can directly transform it into some background color, for example, based on this color property. Now the color is going to be optional, and if there is no color, then we will just default to some grayish color for the tag. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is within my product, I will say import tag from the tag file and use this tag instead of a string as the definition of our tag. So now we will have an array of tags, which can be an empty array, then it means the product has no tags. But if there is any element, it has to be of shape tag, like so. So now what I will do is I will, within my data model, create an index.ts file, and I will export everything from product and export everything from tag. Great. So now I'll save this, and we could even come back here to my app.ts file, and let's try to create one very basic product, right? So let's say const my first product is going to be of type product, like so. And then my IDE is already going to point out, okay, please import this statement or import this type from our data models. And now I need to define how the product is going to look like. And as you can see, TypeScript is complaining that there are a couple of missing properties from our product. So we'll start with an ID, and for these purposes we'll just say 1 here because we are not yet generating the ID. But then we say title. This is going to be my first product. We then are going to have, let's see what's missing. Price. Price is going to be 50, like so. And then we'll say tags and description. So tags are going to be just an empty array for now, and description is going to be, this is my first product. Okay, like so. Now, as you can see, the red underline disappeared, and I'm just left with a warning. Okay, your constant my first product was not used. So if I define here a React component, remember we discussed some time ago what a component is, and a component is nothing more than a function. From our perspective here, we will not work with class components, we will work with functional components. A component is nothing more than a function that is going to be represented in JSX like so, and it's going to receive some arguments via the JSX tag. So let's define this const product component, and this is going to be a function. Therefore, I will use the arrow function here. It will receive some props, okay? And the props are going to be of the following shape. So, okay, maybe we define the shape in a little bit later, just we will discuss this in a few minutes. But the idea here is that I just want to return a div, and that's very simple. We'll improve this, of course. Within the h1 here, I want to write my product.title. And within a paragraph, I want to write my product.description, like so. Now, as you can see, this is not defined, so we need to define this somewhere. And as you may imagine, this is going to come from the props of my React component. So the props of my React component are going to look like so. Let me create a component here below the button, and I'll say this is a product component. And the product component is going to receive a product via the props, right? So this product is going to be my first product. Now here, because props has inherently the any type, I can pass any type of props to my JSX component. This is not what we want, right? So we want to define the types of these props here so that we can ensure that we are passing only valid props to our React component. So let's define this here. We will do a bit of refactoring afterwards. I'll move this to a respective file. So our product component props is going to look like this. It is a product which is of type product, right? So I'm just defining the shape of my product or of my product component props. And now if I come here, I can say that my props are of type product component props. And now that red underline that was saying that props had an implicitly any type or an implicit any type, they are gone. And now, as you can see, I'm still within the realm of a valid prop because the product key here is actually receiving a object that is of type product. Okay, now if I were to change this to something like this, then as you can see, TypeScript will start complaining. First, it will say product is not assignable to intrinsic attributes and product component props, right? So, and it's even hinting here, did you mean product? Because the spelling is quite similar. And also, I have a warning in my JSX component which says that element product component doesn't have required attribute product, right? So now I need to come back to my props and say, okay, the product is here, be happy, don't complain. If, however, I were also to pass another, let's say my incomplete product, and I didn't type this incomplete product as a product, or by using the type product, and let's say that by any chance I forgot the ID. Okay, I create the title, the price, the tags, the description, everything, but I forget the ID. And then I try to pass this to my product prop. Let's see what's going to happen. And again, we have an error. So what TypeScript is saying is that the property ID is missing in the type blah, 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 but required in type product, right? So here TypeScript is inferring the type of this incomplete product based on the properties or the keys here in the object and their values and their respective types. And because there is no ID here, TypeScript is saying, okay, this my incomplete product is of a certain type that does not have the ID attribute. This is something that is going to be caught by our TypeScript typing here, because we are going to say, okay, we are expecting a product and it has to be of shape product. Let's then delete my incomplete product and let's update the prop to my first product. The last thing that I would like to do here for this code to work is to destructure the product variable from my props, right? So I can use destructuring. This is a JavaScript feature that if I use a set of curly braces or curly brackets like this, I can then list the properties that I want to extract from my props object. And the property I want to extract here is product. So I add a new blank line just for formatting purposes, and I'll save this and wait for it to compile, and we'll go back to the browser and check it. And as you can see, there you go. We have our first product, and this is my first product, and that's our description. Very nice. So we have done quite some progress here. We have started defining our data models, the product model, the tag model, and we have also defined a product component. In the next video, we will do a bit of refactoring. We will move the product component to its own file. We will rethink a little bit the naming, and we will start organizing our code, and we'll move on with the development of further functionality. We will work mostly on the UI in the next video. We want to make this product component to look quite nice. Okay, so we just want to have a nice presentation on the screen. Great. If you want to get a notification about the next videos every time they're uploaded, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. I try to upload videos every day, at least 2 videos a day, so you will get a small notification every time a new video is available. And also, if there is any topic in programming that interests you, make sure to write down in the comments, and if you see some topic that is of your interest and someone else commented, give it a thumbs up, because I take those things into consideration when planning the future series of the channel. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.